let's talk about video game marketing.
This is that hottest game lately that everyone's been talking about.
Yep. Video game marketing has gotten a pretty bad rap, and honestly, I can't blame people for not loving it. So many of the awful habits game marketing picked up started back during gaming's first major boom in the 90s, when marketing in general was already kind of insane. On top of all that, this was still the 90s. As a marketer, you probably had a handful of print placements and a few television spots. Ads came at an insane premium, and you had to sell as many copies of Cool Spot or whatever as you possibly could. So what do? Or actually, what does your power-suited mobile phone in the car, $5,000 an hour creative agency tell you to do? Grab people's attention, man! Grab it in the most creatively bankrupt way possible. It's the 90s after all, and we're all too exhausted from post-80s rehab to try that hard. And that's how you get these ads, I guess. What's crazy to me is how fundamentally most of these fail to understand or respect the intended audience. It's like you have this boardroom full of ad execs who all sort of think this shit is for nerdy, bricked-up teenage boys. It did not matter if it was Nintendo or Sega, a fighting or a racing game, console or handheld, these ads were aimed at who the wizards on Madison Avenue believed gamers were. Psychotically horny young men who'd buy just about anything attached to a dirty joke. And sure, maybe that was a demographic at the time, but it wasn't the only one. What happened then, and what persists even now, is the reduction of a hyper-diverse audience into a handful of stereotypes. A great flattening of interests and personality that's easy to market towards. So what if, in this modern era, instead of just generally lumping gamers into one catch-all audience to market towards, you stepped back and asked yourself one simple question: who is this actually for? In 2006, the Panthers played the Eagles, and somewhere during the block of halftime commercials, this aired.
Do you think we'll ever meet them?
This is the announcements trailer for Halo 3. There are a couple of notable things about it, like Master Chief's bubble shield dome thing. I lost my goddamn mind when I saw that. But most importantly, as it relates to the entire marketing strategy behind Halo 3, there is one several-second-long scene that is the key to understanding everything about this masterpiece of a marketing campaign. Okay. Let's rewind to 2001 and 2004. At their launch, Halo and Halo 2 were the biggest games in the world. Both games had snatched up just about every award you can imagine, sold millions of copies, and redefined first-person shooters pretty much forever. Of course, that meant a third Halo was heading our way. But before Halo 3 hit Xbox 360s officially, a marketing campaign for the game would begin rolling out about a year in advance. The marketing team behind the title had a full year to focus on reigniting Master Chief mania and stoking the fires of hardcore Halo fans. Except that's only half the story. To understand what Microsoft, Bungie, and the multiple agencies who worked on this campaign achieved, we'll break it down into two parts. I'm calling them maintenance and outreach. These are pretty simplified buckets meant to illustrate the two distinct strategies Microsoft built into this very long and very expensive marketing campaign. Everything began in 2006 at E3, when Microsoft unveiled the first trailer for Halo 3, revealing some really teasery story points and the first tagline for the game, officially acknowledging the finale of this Halo story. The tagline, "Finish the fight," is pretty generic. Apply it to almost any franchise and it sorta works. Not effectively, but it at least makes sense. But this is where our first phase, maintenance, begins. The fight to be finished was the culmination of two previous Halo titles, and hours of story involving super AI, a universe-destroying weapon planet, multiple ancient alien races, and a mostly silent protagonist named John 117. It's too much for most people, but Microsoft understood that for those invested in Halo, The promise of finally finishing the story would send hardcore fans into a frenzy. And it worked.
What's up, fam?
On top of that, Microsoft also rolled out a few interactive ARGs and buzzy marketing stunts that deepened the story for those paying attention. No one really talks about any of that anymore, which totally makes sense, since none of it was meant to go far and wide. This is the kind of marketing you often see when a game already has a massive fanbase that's deeply invested and hungry for more. This strategy is aimed at the engaged who probably would buy Halo 3 no matter what, but need to be at least made aware of the upcoming launch. It's maintenance. The stuff you have to do to pull your main audience back into your gravity while almost always alienating everyone else. I don't want to say it's simple because a lot of games have gotten this wrong, but it often comes down to understanding what people love about a title and then evoking that in the marketing. With Halo 3, Microsoft took a gamble on what would get hardcore fans back into the fold. And it wasn't features or new guns or new armor or whatever, it was the promise of a conclusion to the story being told over 5 years across Halo 1, 2, and 3. Now, for everyone else not invested in Halo up to this point, all of this
You all right?
Never been better. You can't imagine the wealth of information. The knowledge, so much, so fast.
I mean, you can't blame people for being turned off here. This is where the second phase comes in. Outreach. In 2008, at an M16 marketing conference, Chris Lee, the global group product manager at Microsoft, explained one of the biggest hurdles presented to non-hardcore Halo fans, saying, "We did some research and found out that people thought of Master Chief the same way they think of RoboCop and the Terminator, a killing machine." What Microsoft had on their hands here was the third installment of a franchise with incredibly deep, nearly impenetrable lore featuring a protagonist who the public perceived as an emotionless robot. On face value, it's not an attractive sell, but as Lee went on to explain, the key to getting people unfamiliar with Halo on board started with a simple idea. They had to humanize Master Chief.
You ever wonder what's up there? Like what? Maybe someone up there was wondering what it's like here.
This is where we go back to Starry Night, which gave the general public a first look at Halo 3. Notice how different this looks from that original E3 ad aimed at hardcore audiences.
Not yet.
From style to the actual story, Starry Night was purpose-built for people who knew next to nothing about Halo. It's shot cinematically, nearly photoreal, and free of any story at all. But most importantly, there's this shot. There are two notable concepts here. The first is that we are introduced to the trailer's main character as a kid. The second occurs when it's revealed that that kid was actually Master Chief, who, after a concussive blast, wakes and very clearly puts on a helmet. This is the big trick. Microsoft, with zero ambiguity, showed the public that this guy they thought was a killer robot is not only human, but was once a stargazing kid. In 2 shots, they'd crushed a negative perception and aimed directly at a new, untapped audience. Starry Night also avoided alienating the hardcore Halo audience by revealing Halo 3's bubble shield. It probably meant nothing to the general public this ad was made for, but for fans, this item represented new mechanics and gameplay potential. For an already hungry core audience, this was more than enough to keep the fire burning.
How did you manage to keep it together?
We knew Master Chief was still in the fight. He gave us hope.
After Starry Night, Microsoft continued this perception campaign in an attempt to not only humanize Master Chief, but to also turn him into a hero. This was done through a handful of wonderfully made ads featuring veterans reminiscing about Master Chief's battlefield bravery, set in a future where humanity was saved by the big guy. Once again, we have actual humans who owe their lives to Master Chief. Not a lifeless robot or killing machine, but a human himself. As Chris Lee explained in 2008, the challenge we had, and it was identified early on, we didn't have an awareness problem. People knew it was coming out. It was a perception problem. Back then, nearly everyone in the US and Europe had heard of Halo in some form. the ceiling for awareness was capped, so the marketing challenge became centered around discovering a prevailing problem and tackling it head-on. It sounds simple. People don't play Halo because they think Master Chief is a weird murder bot, so let's just show him as a human. But more than a simple solution, what Microsoft understood here was a difference of audience created in detail with data and research. I won't get too into the data here because that's not this video, but too often we see marketing underperforming primarily due to a lack of audience understanding, partially informed by data. People are regularly lumped into fans and not fans, gamer or not gamer, hardcore or casual. It's a minimizing of issues in favor of broad generic strokes. With Halo 3, a massive potential audience clearly felt a specific way about Master Chief, so Microsoft built an entire marketing campaign to combat that thinking. And of course it worked. I don't need to tell you this, but Halo 3 was a big hit, making around $170 million in 24 hours. And a lot of that was due in part to a thoughtful marketing and creative strategy that targeted audiences with unique perceptions that needed to be changed. Of course, the massive marketing budget didn't hurt either. What I'm saying is that even now, in a significantly more digital era, where the Halo 3 marketing campaign might even seem quaint, there will always be a need to define audiences and their worldviews beyond generic buckets, especially in games. Nearly every digital platform currently funnels us into communities, artificial or otherwise. Places like Reddit and Discord push us to consider what communities we feel most at home within, and those homes all come with their own set of challenges and desires that marketers should probably consider if they want to get remotely close to where Microsoft landed with Halo 3. And at the very least, it might prevent this from ever happening again.
4 years prior, it promoted Splinter Cell Conviction by hiring an actor to show up to a New Zealand bar dressed as an in-game enemy with a fake gun.
Yeesh.